What if I told you that you've already healed more than you realize, but you just haven't noticed it yet? Today, we're exploring Carl Jung's profound insights on the 6 signs of inner transformation, the ones that happen quietly, in the depths of your soul. Healing rarely arrives with fanfare. It doesn't show up like a sudden breakthrough or a moment everyone can see. Carl Jung discovered that true healing is invisible at first. It creeps in slowly, gently, and persistently, much like the first light of dawn filtering through a darkened room. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Healing is rarely about erasing suffering. Instead, it's about transforming it. Often we feel broken simply because progress isn't dramatic or obvious. But what if healing begins the moment you stop trying to return to who you were before the pain and start embracing who you are meant to become afterward? The world teaches us to measure progress externally, through smiles, productivity, or outward success. But Jung knew something deeper. The most meaningful changes happen inside, where no one else can see. Healing is quiet. It happens in moments of reflection, in the silence between thoughts, and in the small victories of surviving another day with grace. In his notes and journals, Jung observed subtle shifts in people's behavior, thinking, and emotional responses, tiny signs that healing had taken root. Over time, these insights became what we can call the 6 signs you've healed more than you realize. These aren't loud or obvious. They are the quiet transformations that only your soul can recognize. Sign 1. You no longer chase closure. There was a time when you demanded answers. You replayed conversations, searched for explanations, and wished people had acted differently. You longed for apologies, recognition, or a neat ending to every story. Jung observed that closure is rarely external. You cannot force it from others. It is an internal process, a decision to stop bleeding for what no longer exists. Every person who leaves, every story that ends, carries with it a lesson for you. When you stop seeking validation from the outside, you find peace inside. You know you've healed when walking away no longer feels bitter. When you stop checking the door for someone who has already left, you realize the story ended exactly as it was meant to, and that is enough. That quiet acceptance is the first signal that your spirit is mending. Sign 2. You no longer need to be understood. There was a time when being misunderstood hurt more than anything. You wanted to be seen, validated, and recognized for your depth. Every misjudgment felt like a blow to your identity. Jung noticed that other people's perceptions often mirror their own unhealed wounds. When they criticize your sensitivity, it reflects their fear of their own. When they mock your depth, it shows their discomfort with complexity. Healing occurs when you stop seeking understanding. Your worth isn't something to prove, it simply is. You've healed when someone misjudges you, and you remain calm. You no longer allow their perception to control your peace. That silent self-assurance is one of the most profound markers of inner strength. Sign 3. You stop romanticizing the past. The past can haunt us. Songs, messages, memories, they echo in your mind, making you wonder what could have been. Jung saw this pattern often. People held hostage by nostalgia, unable to see the lessons their experiences offered. Healing transforms your relationship with the past. You look back with understanding instead of longing. Every heartbreak, failure, and silence becomes a teacher. You no longer repeat old patterns unconsciously. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When memories no longer trigger longing or pain, that is proof you've healed. The past is no longer a cage but a source of insight. This awareness, the ability to recall without being pulled back, is one of the most subtle and powerful signs of inner growth. Sign 4. Solitude no longer feels lonely. Once silence felt unbearable. You filled it with noise, people, or distractions, anything to escape yourself. But slowly you learned to meet yourself in those quiet moments. Jung emphasized that wholeness comes from embracing your shadows, not rejecting them. Solitude becomes a mirror for your soul. You confront shame, regret, and longing, and instead of avoiding them, you sit with them. Compassion grows for the parts of yourself you once neglected. You've healed when your own company feels safe. When hours of stillness no longer feel like punishment, but like home, you found peace within yourself. This is a profound, invisible sign of transformation. Learning that you were never truly alone. You just hadn't met yourself yet. Sign 5. You respond instead of react. There was a time when pain triggered instant reactions. A harsh word, a glance, or a small slight could feel like the weight of every past hurt pressing down on you. Jung observed that emotional maturity begins when we stop letting unconscious impulses control us. Healing is the gap between stimulus and response. You pause, breathe, and notice your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. Anger, fear, or jealousy no longer control you. Instead, you observe them. You've healed when you can say, "I feel this, but I will not let it define me." This is strength that exists quietly, invisible to the world, but transformative within. The pause between impulse and action becomes the birthplace of a new life, a life of calm, choice, and conscious presence. Sign 6. You begin to create instead of escape. Pain used to drive you to distraction. You sought relief in entertainment, people, or avoidance, attempting to silence the inner ache. Jung noticed that true transformation happens when we turn that pain into creation. Words, art, music, reflection, or acts of service become channels for expressing what was once endured. Healing shows itself in this act, when suffering becomes fuel for growth, insight, and contribution. You've healed when your pain no longer consumes you but inspires you. When you can transform chaos into meaning, when your experiences become guidance for yourself and others, you demonstrate the highest form of quiet resilience. These 6 signs, letting go of closure, releasing the need to be understood, seeing the past clearly, embracing solitude, responding instead of reacting, and channeling pain into creation, are the subtle signals Jung observed in his exploration of the human psyche. They are the quiet transformations that mark real healing, often invisible to the outside world, but powerful beyond measure. Healing doesn't require applause or recognition. It is not a sudden, dramatic event. It is the gentle evolution of your inner life. When you notice the way you carry yourself, the calm in your responses, the peace in your solitude, you are witnessing the fruits of Jung's wisdom in your own life. Healing does not end with recognition of signs. It grows through everyday life, through the way you interact with the world and with yourself. After the 6 quiet transformations begin, a new rhythm emerges. You notice how you navigate relationships, your thoughts, and even the small moments that once felt heavy. Jung observed that inner integration is not a destination, but a continuous journey. It is in the ordinary, often unnoticed moments that the soul reveals its evolution. You begin to notice subtle shifts, the way your chest no longer tightens when confronted with discomfort, the way your mind pauses before reacting, the way silence no longer terrifies you but offers a sanctuary. These are the living proofs of quiet healing. As you move through life, you start responding with intention rather than reacting out of accumulated wounds. Conversations that once left you shaken now pass through like water over stone. A cutting remark no longer pierces you. Instead, it is observed, absorbed, and released. Jung noted that the gap between stimulus and response is where consciousness resides, where the self is no longer a prisoner of old patterns. You discover that you can hold your hurt without letting it define your actions. You speak softer, choose calmer responses, and forgive more easily. This is not weakness. It is mastery. It is the power of the soul that has learned to guide the body, mind, and heart, rather than be led by them. Another profound manifestation of healing is the way you handle chaos and unpredictability. In the past, uncertainty might have thrown you into panic, forcing you to seek control or distraction. Now you approach it with measured curiosity, trusting yourself to navigate whatever arises. Jung described this as the integration of opposites, the ability to hold tension without being consumed by it, to accept contradictions within yourself and the world. You no longer see life in binary terms of safe and unsafe, right and wrong, good and bad. You observe, reflect, and act from a grounded place of awareness. Love, too, transforms. Healed people love differently. They no longer cling, no longer try to force connection or validation. They offer affection freely, without expectation, because they recognize that love is not a tool for survival, but a mirror of their own wholeness. Jung emphasized that the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, must be embraced to experience authentic connection. By acknowledging your own darkness, your own fears and desires, you can approach relationships without needing them to complete you. You begin to notice your old patterns as they resurface and choose consciously not to repeat them. You no longer confuse anxiety with excitement, longing with necessity, or attachment with love. Boundaries become natural, not defensive. Saying no is no longer guilt-inducing. Walking away no longer carries bitterness. You act from alignment with your inner truth rather than reaction to external circumstances. Another subtle proof of healing is the way your past loses its power to haunt you. Places, people, and memories that once triggered pain now elicit neither longing nor fear. You can encounter reminders of old wounds and feel calm, sometimes even grateful for the lessons. Jung wrote extensively about individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating conscious and unconscious aspects of the self. What was once a source of suffering becomes a guide, a lens through which you see your growth. Pain, once a teacher reluctantly tolerated, now shapes your decisions and perspectives. Your creative expression evolves as well. Writing, art, music, or quiet reflection becomes a vessel for your inner world. You do not create to impress or escape, but to articulate, to transform, and to share. Each act of creation is a dialogue with your own unconscious, a statement that suffering has been recognized and transformed rather than ignored. Jung considered this process essential to psychological health. It is the soul's way of translating experience into meaning. These changes are subtle yet profound. Healing is measured not in applause, achievements, or recognition, but in how you carry yourself, how you respond, and how you inhabit your own life. You become lighter not because the past disappeared, but because your relationship with it has shifted. You are no longer fighting for peace, you embody it. You no longer seek validation because your sense of self is no longer contingent on others. Every act of patience, every moment of quiet presence, every choice of calm over reaction is a testament to the invisible work of integration. You begin to notice that old fears no longer dictate your choices. You no longer chase people who withhold affection. You no longer seek approval through performance, and you no longer confuse external noise with your inner truth. You start to move through the world with a sense of groundedness that others may not notice but you feel in every step. Jung believed that the unconscious constantly seeks expression. When you transform suffering into understanding and action, you allow your unconscious to speak. You honor it, listen to it, and integrate it. Healing is not linear. You revisit old pain only to discover that it no longer controls you. You face triggers with curiosity rather than fear. You understand that setbacks are not proof of failure, but opportunities for reflection. Life becomes less a battlefield and more a canvas. Your inner landscape, the thoughts, emotions, and shadows you once avoided, becomes a terrain of discovery rather than conflict. And in this quiet mastery, your capacity for love, empathy, and connection deepens. You recognize that everyone acts from their own wounds, not as antagonists against you. You begin responding with understanding rather than reaction, cultivating emotional intelligence born from self-awareness and experience. This is the subtle, profound power Jung described, integration of the contraries. Darkness is not denied. It is embraced, understood, and transformed. It becomes a partner in your growth rather than an enemy to fight. The culmination of all these quiet changes is a sense of wholeness. You no longer need external proof that you have survived, that you have grown, or that you have healed. Peace itself is the evidence. Your thoughts are steadier, your heart lighter, your presence calmer. You find yourself smiling without pretense, sleeping without replaying old stories, and moving through interactions with grace rather than defense. You have become your own sanctuary. You have become your own healer. Jung often said that enlightenment comes not from imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And in living this quiet transformation, this ongoing individuation, you have done exactly that. You have faced the shadows of your past, the hidden fears and regrets, and you have welcomed them into conscious awareness. Healing is not glamorous. It is not marked by dramatic breakthroughs. It is marked by the quiet moments, the pause before reacting, the choice of compassion over resentment, the act of creating instead of escaping, the ability to love without losing oneself. Each day you practice these quiet acts, your soul continues to evolve. Pain no longer defines you, and suffering becomes a teacher rather than a prison. When you look back at your life, you realize that the moments that once hurt you the most are now the very moments that have shaped your strength, resilience, and capacity for love. Healing has been happening quietly, invisibly, and profoundly. You have walked through fire without losing your soul. You have faced yourself and stayed. You have fallen apart and rebuilt in silence, beauty, and authenticity. This is the essence of Carl Jung's message. The self seeks wholeness, and it finds it not through avoidance, but through integration, reflection, and conscious transformation. The world may not notice. There may be no applause. But you have healed more than you ever imagined, and every quiet choice, every peaceful response, and every act of creation is proof. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are no longer defined by chaos or pain. You are peace. You are the light Jung spoke of, born not from imagining it, but from consciously embracing every part of yourself, even the darkness, until it softens and becomes your guide.